Today I want to look at the news kind of from a Russian perspective. I'm going to show you some things. I'm going to get you started with things like Interfax Ukraine and the Institute for the Study of War, and then I'm going to show you the flip side, and then I'm just going to show you a bunch of fun, weird stuff from the Russian perspective. Okay, so here we go. If this is Interfax Ukraine, and this is a source that Ukrainians would trust, and they're showing all the battles. There were armed forces of Ukraine repelled the offensive of Russian invaders in three directions in this day, and in the Kharkiv direction, this is what happened in Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, and it goes on and on and on and on about all the directions where the fighting was. Okay, so that's a Ukrainian source. The Institute for the Study of War had some really interesting things today. Putin signed this document, and they're going to talk about it, and then I'll show you the Russian side. Russian President Vladimir Putin's August 25th decree to increase the size of the Russian military starting in January 2023 is unlikely to generate significant combat power in the near future, and indicates that Putin is unlikely to order a mass mobilization soon. The decree increases the nominal strength from by 137,000 military personnel, so it's just north of 1,150,000 and change. Okay, so that is there. Now you have RT. And this was RT's take on it. Russian president signs a decree on 137,000 troops in the armed forces, and the size will increase, and it says about the same thing. The move comes amid the Russian military operation in Ukraine launched in February, and in these two paragraphs here are boilerplates of what is almost always in these the RT. It's just like it's a copy and paste almost. It's like some lazy journalism. Moscow sent troops to the neighboring country 6 months ago. On February 22, the Kremlin recognized. It's the same stuff, but that they didn't say anything more like, and we're winning a victory, or we're something more about how much land they've grabbed. Actually, I talked about this yesterday. They lost, ISW pointed out, they lost more land than the country of Denmark in size in Ukraine since their high water mark. So it's not going really well. But if it was going well, they should be touting that. Okay, let me go back to the ISW. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant disconnected from the power grid for the first time in its operational history. Energoatom reported that Russian shelling caused the disconnection by starting fires at ash pits near the ZTPP. Russian sources accused Ukrainian forces of fighting and firing at the ZNPP, but Russia has not provided clear evidence of Ukrainian troops striking the plant. Now, before I go to Russia's take, let's go to British. This is the Guardian talking about this is an aerial picture of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Fires caused by shelling in the last remaining power lines. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant on Thursday, temporarily disconnecting it from Ukraine's national grid for the first time. That means they can't get power into it to keep the reactors cool so it doesn't melt down. This is a big problem. Okay, the plant was disconnected twice from the grid on Thursday. Severing the connection caused a blackout in Zaporizhzhia. The outage of the plant still receives supplies of electricity from one remaining backup line connected to a nearby conventional power plant. There were 3 of these lines before the war. 2 had been cut. If all external connections go down, they must rely on a backup diesel generator to prevent it from overheating. Okay, what would happen if it went offline? So we're talking about let's go back here a second. So here the Ukrainians say it's Russia, Russians say it's Ukraine. So what's going on? Okay, does Russia have an incentive to do it? Probably. Does Ukraine have any incentive? Not at all. Like it's in the heart of your territory, and this is what it would look like. They did this. This is how a map of radiation would spread if there's a nuclear accident. And I'm not sure why the rest of Europe isn't just totally up in arms over this. It will affect Russia, certainly, but look at this. This is a spread. This is where Zaporizhzhia is, and this is how the radiation would travel just because of the winds and whatever. This is what would happen. So it starts here, and then it goes all the way across the country, and it would hit Poland and the Baltic states and Hungary and Croatia and Czechoslovakia, or not Czech Republic, and right. Look at all this. A little into Romania, a bit into Moldova, right? I mean, it would be very, very bad. Okay, so let's go to an RT source on the same thing. RT says security systems have been activated at Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant outage. The blackout is said to have been caused by massive wildfires in the area, which were started by Ukrainian shelling, they said. Okay, but again, they have to offer some legitimate proof. The company has issued a statement saying the Russians have done this. Russia has repeatedly accused Ukrainian forces of shelling the nuclear power plant, but that doesn't even make sense. Like, they wouldn't do that. Damaging some of the equipment and buildings. Moscow has warned that Kyiv is risking a nuclear incident on a similar scale to the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, or even worse. Ukraine, in turn, strongly denies that its military is targeting and is accusing Russian troops of deliberately shelling the plant to frame pro-Kyiv forces. Okay, so this is the weirdest paragraph. They're admitting kind of what I think they're doing, and it's a very strange thing to watch. Okay, so let's go and look at some other RT and Pravda. This is Pravda.ru. Pravda means truth. This is some of the worst journalism ever, but okay. I mean, it's these tiny, poorly written articles. Former Ukrainian MP is member of parliament, says the West has found successors to toxic man Zelensky. Okay, so let's see what it says. Former Ukrainian MP Ilya Kiva stated on August 25th that the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian troops, Valery Zahuny, ex-president Peter Poroshenko, former interior minister Arsen Akvov, and Kyiv mayor Vitaly Klitschko would control Ukraine's western territories. Why Ukraine's western territories? Well, after Russia carves out, the eastern half, this is all that'll be left, I would imagine, is what's going on. It is being more and more obvious that the West has decided on a candidate to replace Zelensky, who has been increasingly toxic and annoying every day, Kiva said in his Telegram channel. Okay, so that's what the whole article is about. So essentially, they're seizing on a politician who has an enemy, who says something bad about him. That's it. I mean, there's no fact checking or reality or anything behind it. It's just saying that and speculating, right? So they found somebody who doesn't like Zelensky, a former Ukrainian MP. Like, if you're a politician, you're supposed to have a bunch of enemies. And okay, anyway, so that's what's going on there. Europe branded third world economy, according to RT. And I mean, I don't even know what to do to go into that when. It's gonna break your brain to read something like that. Okay, Russia and India no longer need U.S. dollars, say the BRICS president. So the BRICS are, if you're not following along, the BRICS are India, Russia. Well, let's see. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they've said we have implemented the mechanism of mutual settlements in rubles and rupees between Russia and India, and there's no need for countries to use the dollar in mutual settlements. Now, what they have done in the past is use the dollar because it's a fairly stable currency in the world, and it's been kind of the go-to currency since World War II. And so people would denominate in that, and then if there was a change in one side's currency fluctuation or another, it would be on that country. It wouldn't be like the partner wouldn't have to pay. At any rate, so they want to break away from that system and not use U.S. dollars. And this is part of what Russia really wants. They really want to move to a world where the U.S. is not a dominant force or dominant figure. And so they're saying, and today, similar mechanisms of mutual settlements in rubles and yuan, that's Chinese currency, is being developed by China. Okay, so, and they keep saying the same kind of thing again and again. These are not isolated. These are more representative of what is constantly fed as diet to in Russian media. Russian ex-president envisions a military junta in Kyiv. Former President Dmitry Medvedev has predicted that the Ukrainian military may stage a coup in Kyiv to do what the civilian government refuses to do, negotiate peace with Russia. Okay, so you're saying that the Ukrainian military will overthrow Zelensky to create peace? And he said that is kind of what he's saying. Okay, he outlined the scenario as one of two options that he believes to be viable for Ukraine. The other was to simply roll over. And that's it. Now, what's fascinating about this is one of two options, but in Pravda, it's carried as 1.5 scenarios. Okay. And here we are. There are only, this is actually what he wrote. There are only 1.5 scenarios, which is kind of bad at math. The first one is the achievement of all the goals of the special operation and the unequivocal recognition of its results in Kiev. The second one is a military coup. You mean the 1.51 is a military coup in Ukraine and the subsequent recognition of the results of the special military operation. That's all there is to that. It's like tasty and that's it. Speaking of tasty and that's it, let's look at this. Foreign companies suffer a total of $70 billion in losses after they leave Russia. Yeah, because they had to leave their stuff behind. They had to leave their buildings behind. They had to leave all the infrastructure and stuff that they put into this. And so they did have to take a loss this year, but they've moved on. And they'll be okay in other places. So that is a legitimate thing. This has happened to these companies, and they list a bunch of companies here that have left the Russian market. Now, what is left in the Russian market are things like, instead of Coke, Cool Cola. Did you know this? Like this is fascinating. So they have their knockoff brand of Coca-Cola that tastes kind of similar, maybe in a neighborhood-ish, in the same way that Sam's Choice Cola in the United States, the Walmart brand, kind of tastes like Coke. Okay, Cool Cola. Then they have, instead of the orange slice or whatever we have in the U.S., Fancy, and then we have the worst named one for Sprite is Street. I don't know that I want to drink Street. And they have knockoff McDonald's too. It's called Tasty, and that's it, or Tasty, but that's it. And the diner's more in the Big Mac. So they have something that looks like it and tastes kind of ish like it. But I've seen reports that this was not really all that delectable. And compared to McDonald's, it's not. I mean, and McDonald's isn't exactly high end, right? I mean, think about this. You're in the United States. McDonald's is like the low end of anything. This is worse than the low end of anything. Anyway, so that's what's going on in today's news. And I'm trying to give you this Russian perspective to help you kind of see how they're seeing. And tomorrow we'll be back and we'll talk about normal Ukrainian events. Thank you for your time. If you're still listening, subscribe, because I'll be back doing this again tomorrow.